I've had the unique pleasure over the years to test suspension forks from various manufacturers at various levels, and I keep coming back to a certain few, and it might surprise you. I've been on them all. Most recent, the new Fox 38, the Fox 36, in the factory models, and the factory elite and performance. I've been on the 34 with the Fit 4 in the factory model, Lyric, Ultimate, Mezzer, Z1, Helm Coil. I've had the opportunity to ride a lot of these forks. But is it necessary for everyone to be on the highest end version? And I'm going to say, I don't think so. Because when I let you know which ones I keep coming back to and why, you may second guess that. My benchmark fork for a number of years was the Lyric. For some reason, just the way that fork felt under compression, that it had this balloon-like feel to the way it worked, and how sensitive it was to hits and off the top. That was my benchmark fork, and I've been chasing that with some of the newer models. Now I've had all the time in the world to monkey around with settings across all of these forks. I've had data acquisition on them to tune them, but I'm going to tell you straight up, you probably don't need the highest end fork with all of the adjustments to get the bike to ride amazing. I'll go out and say it right now. The fork I hated the most was the Fox 34 factory Fit 4 dampener. I just could not get that thing to ride the way I wanted it to. I even went so far as to send it back to Fox to have them check it to make sure that the dampening circuit was correct, because it felt harsh and the rebound never quite felt fast enough. And this was at the time while I was riding the Lyric of the similar range, and it just felt so much better. So moving to the pandemic era, and I've been riding the Fox 38 factory, the Fox 36 Performance Elite, the Mezzer, the Z1 Coil, the Z1 Air, and you know what my favorite two right now are? The Manitou Mezzer Expert and the Marzocchi Bomber Z1 Air. Both lack all of the extra adjustments. They don't have the high speed and low speed compression and rebound. They don't have the additional air cartridges to set up the negative spring. They're simple and they just really work. The Mezzer comes the closest to the way that RockShox Lyric felt. I'm going to attribute that to the lower air pressures it runs, but it feels very supple. It has that balloon-like feel to the compression and rebound. It's very supportive and it's very stiff. The Z1 Air is also very similar to that. And in fact, I prefer the Z1 Air over the Fox 36 factory. The Z1 feels stronger. It feels like it is more sensitive and compresses easier. And I'm going to attribute that to running the lower grade chassis and aluminum compared to the 36, which although makes it heavier, significantly so, it also makes it feel a lot stronger and stiffer. But what I think is really important with these forks to note is that they're extremely easy to set up and extremely easy to get a good tune. When you start messing with forks with 3 or 4 different compression circuit and rebound circuit dampening units, you got to understand how the low speed is going to affect the high speed and vice versa. And getting it wrong will certainly impact the way the fork feels. And you'll need to change those settings depending on where you're riding to get the optimal ride feel. And when you don't get it right, you're going to notice it. And I'm going to say that 90% of the time, you're going to get it wrong. So here's where I leave things. If you got a little bit of extra cash and you want to get a fork that can go across any platform, grab the Mezzer Expert. You can adjust it between 140 and 180 mil internally, and it's a 2,000 gram fork for $29. If you don't need the travel adjustability, you got a little bit less in the pocket, the Marzocchi Z1 Air is a fantastic fork and should be high on your list of things to get, especially if you don't care about that little extra weight. And if weight isn't that big of an issue, and you can go a little bit more in the weight department, the Z1 coil is probably the best feeling fork that you can grab out there right now. It is very supple, it is very simple to set up, and when you got the right spring rate, it is soft off the top, supportive in the middle, and it feels great all the way to the end of the travel. If I were to, however, recommend one of the higher end forks and you wanted to deal with the adjustability and getting it right and finagling with it all the time, Cane Creek Helm coil is mind-blowingly awesome, especially if you like to charge real hard. The dampening circuit on it is really set up for someone who likes to push the limits, push the pace, and can deal with a little bit firmer of a compression tune, because when you get past that, when you start really charging that fork, it's hard to beat it. I'm going to say that D-Lock system does a seriously fantastic job of making that fork feel like a stiff fork in that 35mm chassis category. So there it is. You don't need to go to the top end all the time. Running that mid-level fork is more than appropriate. In the RockShox lineup, running that Debonair cartridge is what makes the fork feel amazing. You don't need all the adjustments. Z1, fantastic. Mezzer Expert, my top pick. Get out there, grab a bike, go ride more awesomer.